Alright, we're down here at the 1750. I wanted to show some of these things that I've done to these tractors that kind of made them easier to work with. Not so much modify them, but add things that you know, over the years they've gotten hard to work with and hard to do anything with. So I've changed a few things, and the Oliver here is one of them. Bring it around here. One of the problems of these Olivers, and adding these couplers with the shut off on them really helps, but one of the problems is there's a check valve in the end of this thing where you can see the little ball. And these Olivers, when these lines go back into the valve, there's a check valve there. And what happens is you either activate one side or the other, one of the outlets, and you've got pressure behind one of these balls regardless which way you go, and when the check valves leak internally, there's maybe pressure on both of them. It's kind of hard to relieve because once you shut the tractor off, the pressure's locked in there and you can't get it out of there until you activate the other side. What I did is this galley here is drilled and it goes down to you can see the pipe fitting come out here, and then the hose comes up to the bottom of the couplers down here. And there it is right there. What I did is I opened this plug up here and put a little ball valve in here. Now this one I lost the handle for. Obviously it rattled off someplace, but it will relieve one side. And that's all you need, because you can energize that side and then dump it off, and the other side will go to tank. I had one here too, but this summer baling hay, it started leaking all over the place, and I just plugged it for the time being. And that's where I got some new valves here, and I was going to put them back on there. Because this one here, without having that and without having the disconnects like that, and I think those are 160 bucks now, but without having that, these are almost impossible to get hooked up to. You almost had to break the lines and let the pressure out of them. So yeah, I'm gonna hook this back up, and I'll bring you back. Alright, got them hooked up here. These are just little Deltro valves. I think they're good for about 1,500 pounds. But yeah, that just dumps the pressure off. This one drops the pressure off in that port there. So that you can get, you know, if you pressurize that one, this one goes to tank. If you pressurize this one, that one goes to tank. Then this one's got pressure behind it, and then you open that valve, that dumps the pressure off of both of them. You hook right up to them. Same way on this side, it dumps the pressure out of the bottom one. So you pressurize that one, which dumps this one to tank, and then you open the valve and it dumps the other one to tank. It's worked. It worked for a long time for me. I got these couplers that don't really need them, but sometimes it sure is handy. One of the other things I'd done when I rebuilt the motor in this tractor, I did a clutch. I rebuilt the 3-speed, and I put an input shaft in the transmission and new chain couplers. I put a hydraulic pump in it. And I had all that. I had money going, you know, more money in this tractor than it was worth. I didn't want to buy a seat, and I don't know if you can see that. Back here you can see better, but there was a torsion bar up here in the side, and it was rusted solid, and the torsion bar broke. I didn't want to put a seat on this thing. I didn't want to buy it. It was a couple $100, and I don't want to spend the money. I notched this lower plate out, and that's a big spring off of I don't know, I think it's a pump out of a hydraulic pump. It's just a big coil spring. And I've ridden the 1550 still has a torsion bar, and it's pretty rigid. I don't know if it's adjustable still or not, but this ride's pretty nice, and I've been happy with it ever since. So that's the other hack that I've done to this tractor. The roll bar was on it when I got it. I don't know, I put a step on the other side. I went out to the Smitty's Tractor Parts and got a roll bar, or a step put on the other side. That's really handy. It had a loader on it, so the front weights weren't on it or anything. So I did that, and I've beefed up this front end because these holes were all wallered out here. I put these plates on and added this and tightened that mess up. It should have probably been just replaced. So yeah, those are the things I've done to this tractor. Yeah, hold on, I'll bring you back. Alright, we're over at the 2940. This tractor I got about the same time. This one we actually bought. The 1750 was a kind of a gift. If you have to, one of them free tractors you got to put more money into than it's worth, so end up paying for it one way or another. The 2940 had issues. The previous owner put this loader on, but it had a pair of cylinders here for steering, and there was one here, and there was one over here in this pinhole here. And this thing had the turning radius of a freight train. It'd take 40 acres to turn around, and I talked to the guys that owned it previous, and they says, oh yeah, you just step on the brakes. Well, that's fine. When they were planting corn with it, they didn't have this loader on, but with all that weight on the front end, it didn't want to slide the axle, or, you know, slide the front end around. So my hack was I took them 2 single acting cylinders on each side out. I made this cylinder. This thing will steer shorter than the Oliver now. It'll crank these wheels right over till they're pretty near, you know, pretty near parallel the axle. That was just a cylinder I got in at the hydraulic shop, or somebody give me that. I changed the ends on it, changed the other end on it so it would mount in the same place as the 2 single acting cylinders, and I have never regretted that. This tractor steers 100% better. That's just one of the things. The other thing was it had this loader on, and every time you wanted to operate something on the back with the remote hydraulics back here, you had to uncouple the loader, and that was annoying. It had a valve. it had a valve that stood right up in here beside the seat. And I hated that thing. So that's where I built this valve. It's 4 sections. The first two handles up there run the loader, lift, and tilt. The second 2 run the remotes. This is your pressure and return. These 4 lines go to the remotes in the back, and these 4 lines go to the loader. And it's something else I've never regretted putting on the tractor, was that loader valve and having all my hydraulics right there in one lump. Now, this is a spool valve, where the old one had poppets and it wasn't as prone to leak, but boy, does that make a big difference when you got all your fingertip controls right there. You got the remotes, outlets, 2 of them, and a loader valve, and you can run it all at the same time. The third thing I've done to this tractor, well, the previous owner put the M&W turbo on it. I didn't do that. It had a straight pipe right off the turbo up in there. I can't see it, but that's a muffler off of a I think it's either a 190 or a 200 Alice Chalmers, just because it's got a 3-inch inlet and fits right on that turbo up pipe. So we put that on because I couldn't stand to run it with a straight pipe. The other thing was, if you ever see these guys with the old John Deeres, you know, 4020s or 3020s or 4520s, 4620s, they'll get on the tractor and they commence to cranking on the steering wheel to start the dang thing. They'll turn the key and start cranking on the steering wheel. And I did some digging, got into the books, got into the owner's manual, and they did make a cold starting kit for this tractor. And I checked on it through John Deere, and it was about $600. And what it amount to, this little solenoid valve here, and there's a hydraulic hose goes up and around, and a hydraulic hose goes into the other side of the pump over here. And this blue wire going there goes to the start solenoid, so that when you key the starter, it sends power up this wire to here. It unloads that pump. This is a closed center system, so that when that pump starts running, it goes up to full hydraulic pressure. And if you crank it too long, of course the pump's pumping, it's going to build full pressure, and that takes horsepower. And when it's cold and the starter can't turn it, it sure helps to dump that off. So that solenoid valve is normally closed. When you energize it, it opens, dumps that pump and unloads that pump. It kind of does the same thing it does when you crank the steering wheel, but it unloads the pump. And let me tell you what, it made a world difference in the cold weather starting this tractor. Yeah, those are a few things that I've done to make these tractors better to operate. The 1550 I haven't touched yet, but I'm probably gonna put my bypass, put a set of them valves on this, because I can do it right into this port here and over here, and just run them back into the reservoir. That was something, yeah, that port in the reservoir was just just, you know, that's just open to the oil reservoir. Is all that is. It's on this side, right down here, and these are just copper lines. So yeah, there's no pressure on them when these valves are shut. There's no pressure on them when the valves are open. So anyhow, yeah, this video is getting long. I'm gonna call this video tractor hacks, because I've kind of hacked them to make them easier to work with. You guys have all seen the hack I did to the little 820 where I put power steering on it. I put power steering on that. The only other thing I've done was I've put a 12-volt coil in my Farmall H, but that's pretty simple. Nobody wants to see that. So anyhow, that's my video on tractor hacks, things I've done to make them easier to operate. So thanks for watching.